The Bearcats football spring game. It happened today. We react to it. And I'll just say it. Evan Prater is my guy at quarterback. And the battle in the trenches on Saturday was dominated by the defense. Does that mean we should be concerned about the offensive line? I don't think so. Plus, Desmond Ritter and Sauce Gardner were at the spring game Saturday. There's so many things I like about that. I'll explain all of this and get into the spring game on Locked On Bearcats.
Are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen of every day. It is Monday, April the 11th of 2022. The spring game happened on Saturday for the Bearcats. We're going to get into it. We're going to get into the quarterback battle, which both quarterbacks performed well on Saturday, but Evan Prater, I thought, impressed the most. We'll get into the trench warfare, the battle in the trenches, the offensive and defensive lines dominated by the defense. I don't think that means we should be concerned about the offense. And then I'll get into so many reasons why I like Desmond Ritter and Sauce Gardner being in attendance at the spring game. Alex Frank here with you on Locked On Bearcats today. Thank you for making it your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe to Locked On Bearcats on YouTube. Like and share a comment on today's video. And don't forget you can download Locked On Bearcats from Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can like, share, comment, and give it a rating. That helps Bearcat fans like you, more Bearcat fans like you, find this podcast. So the spring game happened. And I can get into again why I think it was ridiculous that it happened without fans, but it was in the bubble. The bubble looks really nice. There were a lot of people in attendance. A lot of media was there. And from all the reports that I read, Evan Prater shined. Evan Prater was the starter for the first team. You can take that however you will. I'm taking that as he's the best quarterback right now. He's my guy at quarterback. I explained all the reasons why on a previous show why he is. Evan Prater brings more upside. Evan Prater has more potential. Evan Prater in college football today, I think, provides more, offers more than Ben Bryant. But that doesn't mean Evan Prater is going to win the job. It doesn't mean Ben Bryant's going to win the job either, though. Both quarterbacks performed admirably. Evan Prater with a 40-yard touchdown pass to Tyler Scott. Ben Bryant with a touchdown pass in the red zone. So both quarterbacks are good at different things. And both Luke Fickell and offensive coordinator Gino Guidugli were asked this question after the game of what are they looking for? Explosive plays or not turning the ball over? Both said they're looking for both from their quarterbacks. That's a good thing. It doesn't mean that they're going to change the offense's identity. It doesn't mean that they're going to choose one over the other. You want to have both. In an ideal world, you have both. We saw last year the involvement of Joe Burrow with the Bengals, for instance. He was so good at those big play touchdowns. But in the red zone, they struggled a little bit. But then you look at the end of the season, every time they got down into the red zone, they were converting. They scored 38 of 41 points in the red zone against the Ravens in Week 16. Joe Burrow threw for 525, but they scored 38 points in the red zone. So the Bearcats, it's going to be, both quarterbacks are going to provide different things. That's why maybe both quarterbacks will play this season. Would it shock me if that happened? No. But Evan Prater does provide more upside than Ben Bryant. Ben Bryant, I think, fits what this offense is going to look like. This offense is going to be driven by the running game. I think, because of what Gino Guidugli said, they're not changing what this offense does. Because I don't think either quarterback is Desmond Ritter 2.0. I think Evan Prater is similar to Desmond Ritter. I think Evan Prater can run and throw like Desmond Ritter, but that doesn't mean that he is Desmond Ritter. Ben Bryant studied under Desmond Ritter. The unique thing about Ben Bryant is that he studies under Desmond Ritter for 3 years. He saw his progression and evolvement firsthand. He learned from the greatest quarterback in modern Bearcats history. I say modern because I know there are those who are going to come at me and say, why not Greg Cook? I respect those because Greg Cook was a great quarterback, both for the Bearcats and Bengals. But still, whoever takes over a quarterback is going to be quarterbacking an offense that's going to look like 2018. Even if Evan Prater is the quarterback, you're not going to send him out there right away and say, all right, Evan, go chuck the ball 40 to 50 yards 10 to 12 times a game. That's not going to happen. It shouldn't happen. I don't care how big of an arm he has. Not every quarterback is Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. They need to be brought along, and you have a running game to lean on. You have tight ends that you can throw to who are great at picking up yards after the catch and great at picking up first downs and moving the sticks. So even if Evan Prater does take over as the starting quarterback, you're not going to see fireworks right away. We didn't see fireworks right away from Desmond Ritter. We did eventually, but not in the first two games. Desmond Ritter attempted, 24 passes in the first game, 11 in the second game? That's an average of just under 20 a game. That's not college football today. But when you're young, and Prater's still young, he's got 3 years ahead of him. If Ben Bryant takes over as starting quarterback, yes, he can throw. Yes, he can also run. But again, I think he's going to be the quarterback of an offense that's going to look a lot like 2018. They don't have a bell cow running back, but what they do have is 3 to 4 capable running backs of toting the load. Or toting the rock, excuse me. So that's a good thing. But Evan Prater being the starter for the spring game, Luke Fickell and Gino Guidugli can say that this battle isn't over, that it's going to be close throughout. And I do believe it will. Because I would find it shocking if Evan Prater had this much of a lead on Ben Bryant. But I will say this. I'd give the edge to Evan Prater right now. Because again, you can throw Ben Bryant out there for the Arkansas game, which is probably the smart thing to do. But the best thing to do is to say to Evan Prater, listen, you are our guy, and you're going to be for 3 years. You're going to have to get used to playing in these games, so we're going to start you right off the bat with Arkansas. I would be all in if that's what they did, if that's what this coaching staff did, because I believe in Evan Prater. And even if he doesn't lead the Bearcats to a win in Arkansas, as long as he doesn't go 13 of 30 for 100 yards and 3 picks, if he goes like 20 of 35 for 200 and a touchdown and no picks, I'm fine with that. Listen, Desmond Ritter struggled in big games throughout his career. You saw him against UCF. You saw him against Memphis twice. You saw him against Georgia. He struggled in big games. I mean, so whoever starts at quarterback, even Ben Bryant, what big game has he won? No offense to him, but he didn't play in a marquee game at Eastern Michigan last year. And yes, he played in a marquee game 3 years ago. The Bearcats did not win that game, so he does come with experience, but big game quarterback abilities. And what really is, I mean, if you start Ben Bryant, fine. But he's only going to be here for 2 years. And then Brady Lichtenberg shined in the spring game. Does that mean he enters the competition? Does it mean the Bearcats play 3 quarterbacks this season? It could. I'm not saying it couldn't. I think it very well could be. You have options here. You don't have to say, well, we're totally relying on one quarterback. No, you don't have to be that way. You can very easily play with 3 quarterbacks. Navy does. Now, the Bearcats offense is going to be that, but you can certainly play with, 2 quarterbacks, maybe 3. You could have some packages for them. I'd be very interested to see that, actually. But right now, Evan Prater is my guy at quarterback. Nothing but great things have been coming out of spring ball. And there's still 2 practices left. And we can debate the whole summer what you think about the quarterback battle. You can tell me I'm an idiot for saying Evan Prater should win the job, or you can sing my praises. I want to know from you. What do you think? Who do you want? Who do you want as the starting quarterback in week 1? Who do you want come Saturday, September 3rd as the Bearcats starting quarterback in Fayetteville? Who do you want? I don't think you can go wrong, but I'm taking Evan Prater. Now, whoever is the starter at quarterback, they're going to be playing behind an experienced offensive line. The offensive line struggled on Saturday. It doesn't mean I'm concerned, though. It actually means more so a good thing for the defensive line. I'll get into it. But first, I need to tell you about Built Bar because this is the time of year that I have pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions. Not this year. I'm sticking to it and eating right thanks to Built Bar because it almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, they're not just a protein bar, they are a treat. And they are covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with some incredible flavors: yummy cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. That sounds so good. These are going to be your new favorite. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, Puffs included. 100% real chocolate. Go to Built.com. Actually, I'll say this first. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every time. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. So I have talked about on this show in the first few months of its inception that one great thing about next year's team is going to be the return of all 5 offensive linemen from last year. The offensive line is not changing. And that's a luxury for whoever takes over a quarterback. For a team that's going to have a lot of change and is going to look very different, the fact that all 5 offensive linemen are going to return is a luxury. And really just, I don't know how to say this, but it really just, it's almost like a security blanket. We talk about a quarterback's tight end being a security blanket. That's what the offensive line is. Because not only is a new quarterback coming in and he's going to have to get to know 5 new offensive linemen, he's going to come in and there's going to be some familiarity. The offensive line, though, didn't perform well at spring practice. I don't think it says that they are a bad unit, though. Because if you remember last year, I thought the offensive line played really well. Yes, there were some games where they didn't play well. Indiana, one of them. Alabama, one of them. But that's Alabama. That's Will Anderson and Fedarian Mathis. Okay? Look at how they played in Notre Dame. They played well there. Look at how they played in American Conference play. Very well, right? Look at how they played against Miami. And look at how they played against Murray State. And then look at the championship game against Houston. I don't remember walking away from any game feeling bad about the offensive line. I don't. So what this means is the defensive line just looked so good on Saturday. And it's a defensive line with a bunch of players like Jabari Taylor, Jawan Briggs, Malik Vann, who really haven't had the opportunity and the time to have moments on the field to make an impact. You will see that this year. And they've been learning behind, let's see, Curtis Brooks, who may get drafted, Elijah Ponder, who did get drafted. Let's see who else. Early on, Cortez Broughton, Marquise Copeland, Kamani Fitz, Michael Pitts, Myjai Sanders last year. Yeah, that's who this defense of players were learning behind. So we look at all these players that are going to get opportunities this year. Juwan Briggs, Jabari Taylor had a huge impact at the end of the Tulsa game last year. They're now going to step into their roles, but they've been ready because they've been working behind some really good players that have come through this program. Think about Wilson Huber. There was a great article that Keith Jenkins wrote in the Cincinnati Enquirer on Wilson Huber last week, talking about that he's now going to be the leader of this defense. He's stepping in for Joel DeBlanco. And Joel DeBlanco, for years, was playing behind guys like Perry Young and Jarrell White. And then eventually DeBlanco in 2020 led the team in tackles with over 100. Last year, he was a high-impact player, had a huge interception in the championship game against Houston. And now Wilson Huber, who's been here now for 6 years, is going to step into that role, and he's going to be the leader of this defense. He talked about how he's willing to do whatever it takes to help this Bearcats team get to where they were last year. Now, what that tells you is this team believes they can get back to the playoff. I believe this team can get back to the playoff. The question is, does the College Football Playoff Committee believe it? That's a story for another day. But what this says is, again, the defense is not going to be very far off from where it was last year. No, you're not going to have Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant. Okay, Todd Bumpus and Arquan Bush had great spring games from the reports I read. Again, when you are replacing legends, keep in mind that you also worked behind them. So you saw what they did. You were able to take in every single piece of information that they had, and you were able to apply it, and you were able to learn it. So that gives me the confidence that this defense is still going to be a really good strength and a really good defense, probably towards the top of the conference, maybe towards the top 25 in college football. The Bearcats, see, the national perception is we're not thinking about Cincinnati. We don't have a reason to. But if the Bearcats go into Arkansas and their defense plays well and their offense is able to handle an SEC defense for the first time really in program history, then, okay, notice is going to be taken. The defense is going to be a strength of this team because of these players have learned from so many greats that have come through this program in recent years. As the program has been built, there have been many great defensive players. And now these players, Joel DeBlanco, Wilson Huber, Juwan Briggs, Malik Vann, Jabari Taylor, Wilson Huber, if I didn't mention him already, Todd Bumpus, Arquan Bush. They have a lot of information already packed within them from the players that have come before them. And as far as the offensive line goes, again, this says more about the defense. The offensive line is not going up against this defense in a game. It's a good thing they're getting dominated. It shows you how good the defense is. I know how good this offensive line is. I know how experienced it is. John Williams, Jeremy Cooper, Jake Renfro, Lorenz Metz, James Tunstall, if need be. I know how good this offense, Dylan O'Quinn. I know how good this offensive line can be. I saw it last year. In fact, I saw them eventually after the first half of the Indiana game where they couldn't do anything for a lick. I saw them take over that game when Cincinnati outscored the Hoosiers 38-10. We remember the first quarter and a half of that game. Oh, but do you remember the last 2 quarters and a half when the Bearcats could do whatever they want on offense against Indiana's defense that supposedly was really good or looked really good at the start of the game? I'm not worried. And then you go up against Notre Dame. Well, I'll tell you what, Bearcats won the battle in the trenches there. We could relive that game at Notre Dame every day. That'd be great. Let's just do that. I'm just thinking about everything that happened that game. Sauce Gardner with an interception. Desmond Ritter with 2 touchdown passes and rushing for another. The defense played out of their minds. And the Bearcats faithful took over that stadium. But again, don't be concerned about the offensive line. I wouldn't be, at least. I'd be more excited about what the defense is going to be able to do than concerned about what the offensive line is how the offensive line is going to do. Up next, so Desmond Ritter and Sauce Gardner were at the spring game. That's great, but it's great for so many reasons. Why specifically it's great? I'll get into it, but first I need to tell you about betonline.net because it's your number one source for all your betting, stats, and sports info. You can find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information from live betting to the playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. As I mentioned, the basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season, how about the Cincinnati Reds? The Cincinnati Reds going into the defending World Series champion Atlanta Braves, taking 2 out of 4, earning a split, and their only 2 losses came by 1 run each. I saw a team that was down 7-0 on Friday battle back to make it 7-6. I saw a team that only hit 2 home runs in 4 games, win 2 games. I saw a bullpen that looked better. I saw starting pitching look good outside of Javier San Martin on Friday, which even though, he's still young, I saw Hunter Green look really good on Sunday. NBA playoffs starting this week. The play-in tournament, Tuesday through Friday. So Tuesday you have 2 games, one in the East, one in the West. It'll be the Cavs and the Nets, and then the Clippers and the Timberwolves. Now, let's take a look so if we look at the standings, and I'm going to get into again, I know you're waiting for my take on why I think Desmond Ritter and Sauce Gardner being at the spring game was, so great, but just piggybacking off of my BetOnline read. So, Cleveland's going to Brooklyn on Tuesday. LA is going to Minnesota. If Minnesota and whoever wins that game, those games are the 7 seed. They are the 7 seeds in their respective conferences. Whoever loses that game goes on to play in the 9-10, goes on to play in the against the winner, of the 9-10 game to determine the 8 seed. So, by the way, the 2 seeds in both conferences, Memphis in the West, Milwaukee in the East. How about that? Anyway, so Desmond Ritter and Sauce Gardner at the spring game on Saturday. It's just great because it shows these 2 guys right now are preparing for the NFL draft. They should be living a very high-class life. They're going to interviews with NFL franchises. They're probably getting steak dinners with it. They should be staying in Ritz-Carltons, and they're probably staying in Ritz-Carltons, the executive suite, whatever. They could be on the beach in Florida when they're not visiting with other teams, but instead, no. They are at their alma mater's spring game. And a lot of the players on this year's team played with Desmond Ritter and Sauce Gardner. So to see them not be so far removed from the program when they are preparing for a huge transition in their lives, it's unbelievable. These guys are about to be millionaires. And they're at their alma mater's spring game in the bubble up close. That says a lot about them. Because these 2 guys can be great ambassadors for the university. And for a team this year in Cincinnati, this year's team, and we don't really know how they're going to be. I'm excited for them, though, because of that. Because I don't know how good they're going to be, but yet I think they can be good. I think they can be really good, actually. The fact that Desmond Ritter and Sauce Gardner are there, that shows them, you know what? Look at those 2 guys. They are the building blocks of this program. They are the reason why they were able to go from college football irrelevancy to the college football playoff as a group of 5 school. It was Desmond Ritter's ascension and evolvement, and it was Sauce Gardner's dominance that got that team to the playoff last year. Those guys' confidence, those guys' swaggers, those guys' leadership is what got them to the playoff. And the fact that they were on hand for the spring game, greatness was in the building. Because think about how many great players from colleges. I don't know if every great player has a great relationship with their university, but I believe Sauce Gardner and Desmond Ritter will. Heck, Desmond Ritter not only grew as a football player, but he also grew as a man off the field, as a father, as I would hope soon to be husband. He grew so much as a person and a young man off the field. It almost felt like Desmond Ritter went through college as we did. It really did. I remember I went into my first year at UC. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Sure, I wrote for the news record. Sure, I hosted my own radio show with Bearcast Media. But, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? At times, I'm wondering, like, man. And then Desmond Ritter comes in, and you're like, well, he's good, but, there's things he can improve on. He's got a bunch of raw talent. Desmond Ritter eventually became one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And I am, still 23 trying to find my way in this world. And somehow my talents were good enough to, land this podcast. Thank you, Zach Blackerby. So here I am. I'm still growing, and Desmond Ritter has grown into this hot quarterback prospect. Like, this is really good. And the fact that they were at the spring game, they stand for so much. They stand for leadership. They stand for the greatness. They stand for icons. They stand for pioneers. They stand as the first to make the college football playoff as a, group of five school, the faces of the first group of five school to make the playoff. They stand as the faces of the modern program history for the Cincinnati Bearcats. When you think of the Cincinnati Bearcats, you can now say one of the first things that come to mind should be Desmond Ritter, Sauce Gardner, and it can be either one first. So how Blue Bloods will celebrate, like how schools like Ohio State and LSU and USC and Texas, they'll celebrate, and Georgia will celebrate first round draft picks. Cincinnati can now do that too. Like, Cincinnati has not had a first-round pick since 1971. You want to know how far back that goes? Well, at that point, Richard Nixon was still not a crook. The World Series champions that year were the Pittsburgh Pirates, led by the late, great Roberto Clemente. The Super Bowl champions that year were the Baltimore Colts. The Dallas Cowboys, led by Tom Landry and Roger Staubach. Roger Staubach, Cincinnati native. Yeah, that's how long ago that was. The NCAA tournament also had only 32 teams in the tournament. Oh, and at that point, professionals could not play in the Olympics. But now this year, we get first-round draft picks. And the fact that nothing is beneath them to attend their alma mater's spring game. I'm not sure every college has alumni do that. But University of Cincinnati does, because they understand what Cincinnati is about. It's about hard work. It's about being humble. It's about, community. They're one of us, Midwesterners. That's what they are. And they worked so hard to build the program into what it is, into the identity of this program. Desmond Ritter may have been all flair and panache and whatever. But at the end of the day, he had a toughness to him. Sauce Gardner had a toughness coming from Detroit. That's why you have to love and respect what they've done. Because they're going to be ambassadors for this university for so many years. What they did was unbelievable and so great. That's why it's so great that they were at the spring game. It's a great look. They're ambassadors for the university. It shows that this team is not too far removed from greatness where they were last year. It's not going to be so much of a drop-off this year. I still believe this team has 10 wins in them, if not 11, 12, 13, maybe more than that. The same way Blue Bloods celebrate their first-round picks, Cincinnati's now going to be able to do the same thing. Those guys are going to be in the Nippers Stadium Ring of Honor one day. I guarantee it. I think they're also going to be really good NFL players. By the way, quick side note, Just an absolute horrible tragedy. Saturday morning, Dwayne Haskins, former Ohio State quarterback, struck and killed by a dump truck early Saturday morning on Interstate 595 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Just an absolutely devastating loss for the Ohio State community, the Big Ten community, the college football community, and the NFL community, especially those in Pittsburgh. Just an absolutely horrific loss. Let's end with something positive though. The Bearcats did take the series against Houston this weekend. They won Sunday 9-6. They won on Saturday 13-3. So against Houston, they took 2 out of 3, only lost one game by 1 run. Tomorrow they will take on Louisville down in Louisville. ACC Network Extra will have that game broadcasted, and then they are at Wichita State Thursday through Saturday. All those games can be seen on ESPN Plus. Bearcats 13-17 overall, but they're 3-3 in conference play. So again, like I've said many times, this team starts to heat up in conference play. This is going to be a fun week. So here's the schedule for you. Tomorrow, I was hoping to have a guest on today to recap the spring game, but I will have one tomorrow. I will have All Bearcats reporter Russ Heltman on the show. You know him from allbearcats.com and Sports Illustrated. He'll be on my show tomorrow to talk about the spring game and what to, keep our eyes on going into the summer and then into fall camp. Then on Thursday's show, I'm going to have John Garcia from Sports Illustrated. John Garcia from Sports Illustrated to talk about recruiting. We're going to talk about how the Bearcats have evolved under Luke Fickell as a recruiter in his eyes. He has been kind enough to be on many shows throughout the week. This week on the Locked On Podcast Network, the college channel. So many of my colleagues are going to have him on. I am fortunate enough to have him on, or rather, he's going to be on Friday's show. I said that wrong. Whoops. He's going to be on Friday's show. So many things happening this week. So Friday, I'm going to have John Garcia from Sports Illustrated recruiting, talking about all things recruiting, how the Bearcats have done in recruiting since Luke Fickell has arrived. So that's Tuesday's show. That's Friday's show. And I'm sure we'll have many more things to get to this week. The Big 12, Bob Bowlesby, of course, stepped down. So we'll continue our conversation on that. Who's going to be the new commissioner? What the new commissioner is going to do, what people want him to do, what you want him to do. And that leads me to this. Don't forget to subscribe to Locked On Bearcats on YouTube. And you can like and share a comment on this video on YouTube. And you can also download Locked On Bearcats from Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget you can like, share a comment, give it a rating when you download the audio version. That helps more Bearcat fans like you find this podcast. Thanks for making it, as always, your first listen every day. Now, make your second listen Locked On NFL Draft. This Ryan Tracy and former NFL cornerback Eric Crocker bring the NFL Draft to life every day with insight and analysis on college football prospects and NFL front offices. It is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at Frankie_90 with 2 N's, NNATI. You can follow me on Instagram, AlexFrank9_ and email me at alex3frank@gmail.com, all lowercase, alex3frank@gmail.com. For Locked On Bearcats, I'm Alex Frank. Russ Heltman of All Bearcats, allbearcats.com, and Sports Illustrated joins me tomorrow to talk more about the spring game, his thoughts. He was there. We'll get his things to watch for as we head into the summer months and fall camp, and hopefully you will join us for that episode. Once again, I'm Alex Frank for Locked On Bearcats. Thank you for listening. Have a great rest of your Monday, and I will talk to you with Russ Heltman tomorrow.